Mississippi Delta, early spring, 1930. The sun isn't up yet, but you are, because hunger doesn't wait for daylight. You stand in a small kitchen that barely holds together in winter and barely breathes in summer. The floorboards creak under your weight. The air smells like last night's smoke and something faintly sour, flour that's been stretched too far. You open the tin. There's just enough left to make biscuits, not enough for tomorrow. On the table, a jar of sorghum syrup, nearly empty, a strip of fatback wrapped in cloth, a coffee tin with more dust than grounds. You already know what that means. Today, you have to go to town. There are people depending on you, maybe 2 children, maybe more, still asleep in the next room, curled under thin blankets that won't hold the cold much longer. You don't wake them yet. Better to let them sleep through hunger, for a little while longer. You dress carefully, not your best clothes, but the cleanest ones you have. Because how you look matters, not for pride, not for dignity, for safety. In 1930, a black person in public space is always being read. Too messy? You're judged. Too confident? You're noticed. Too slow, too loud, too anything, and suddenly, you're a problem. You step outside. The air is cool, damp from the night. Dirt roads stretching ahead of you, leading into town like it always has. You've walked this road your whole life, but every trip still feels like something you have to prepare for. Because this isn't just a walk to buy food, it's a walk into rules. As you move forward, others join the road. A man ahead of you carrying a sack over his shoulder, a woman with a basket on her arm, a child walking barefoot beside her, holding 2 coins tight in his hand like they might disappear. No one says much, just small nods, brief eye contact. Everyone understands where you're going and what it takes to get back. The closer you get to town, the more things change. The dirt gives way to packed road, then to something firmer. Storefronts begin to appear, signs painted in careful lettering, windows displaying goods you may or may not be allowed to touch. And here is where the invisible lines begin. You slow your walk slightly, not enough to draw attention, just enough to adjust. Because this space doesn't belong to you, not officially, not socially, not in any way that matters. A white man approaches on the sidewalk. You already know what to do. You step off. Not dramatically, not angrily, just enough to make space. He doesn't look at you, doesn't acknowledge you, doesn't slow down. And that's the point. There are rules here. No signs, no written instructions, but everyone follows them. Lower your eyes. Keep your voice even. Don't linger. Don't touch what isn't offered. And above all, don't act like you belong. You reach the center of town, and now you have a choice. 2 stores. One on the main street, bright windows, better goods, cleaner floors, lower prices. And one just off to the side, smaller, dimmer, less selection, higher cost. You already know where you're supposed to go, because the first store might take your money, but it won't treat you like a customer. And the second one is built on the understanding that you don't have another option. You stand there for a moment, list in your mind, coins in your pocket, people depending on what you bring back. And then you step forward, toward the door. Because no matter what waits inside, you still have to feed your family. You step inside. And immediately, the air changes. It's not something you can point to, not something anyone says out loud, but you feel it. The room is quiet, too quiet. A few people stand at the counter, white customers, talking, laughing lightly, taking their time. Behind the counter, the clerk, leaning forward, elbows resting, listening like he has nowhere else to be. He sees you. You know he does. But he doesn't say anything, doesn't nod, doesn't greet you, just keeps talking. So you wait. You move to the side, not too close, not too far, exactly where you've learned to stand. Your hands stay still. Your eyes don't wander too much. Because even looking too long at the wrong thing can be noticed. Another customer walks in, white. He steps past you without hesitation. The clerk turns to him immediately, like you're not even there. They talk about something small, weather, road work, someone's cousin getting married. Time stretches. You feel it in your feet first, that dull ache from standing still. Then in your jaw, tight, locked. 15 minutes, maybe more. You don't check, because checking would mean impatience, and impatience can be dangerous. Another customer, a boy this time, no older than 14. He walks in, points at candy, takes his time choosing, changes his mind twice. The clerk smiles, laughs with him. You wait, because this is how it works. Not written anywhere, not posted on the wall, but understood by everyone in the room. Every white customer goes first, no matter when you arrived. Finally, the clerk looks at you, not fully, just enough. His chin lifts, barely. Yeah, that's it. No welcome, no question, just permission. You step forward, careful, controlled. You don't hesitate, you don't stutter. You say your list clearly, fast enough to be efficient, slow enough to be understood. Salt, sugar, flour, lard. Maybe coffee, if the price isn't too high. The clerk turns, starts gathering items. And here is where another rule lives. You don't touch anything. Not the cans, not the produce, not the meat. You don't get to choose. Chooses for you. He places things on the counter, one by one. You notice small details, because you always do. The flour sack, slightly torn. A thin line of white dust slipping from the corner. The sugar, not as clean as it should be. The lard, cheaper cut, more fat than anything else. You see it, you understand it, but you don't say a word. Because saying something means risk, and risk has consequences. He finishes, looks at you again, names a price, and immediately, you know. It's too high. You've bought these same things before. You know what they cost, or what they're supposed to cost. But here, that doesn't matter, because there's no sign to check, no receipt to question, no argument you can win. You reach into your pocket, pull out what you have, count it once, then again. It's enough. Barely. You place it on the counter. He takes it without looking at you. No thanks, no acknowledgement, just the sound of coins disappearing. You gather your things, careful not to drop anything, because if something falls, you'll have to pick it up alone. You turn, start toward the door, and just before you step outside, you hear it. A voice behind you, low, not meant to be direct, but loud enough. Something about, they're always coming in now, a quiet laugh. You don't turn around. You don't react, because reacting means acknowledging, and acknowledging can escalate. So you step back into the light, bag in your hands, coins gone, and something else you don't name, but you carry it anyway, because this was just buying food. and you still have to do it again next week. You walk back home. The bag feels heavier than it should, not because of what's inside, but because of what it cost. And for a moment, you think it's over. You got what you needed, you paid, you left. But the truth is, for a lot of people in 1930, there is no leaving the store. Because sometimes, the store is right where you live. Not in town, not on Main Street, but on the land itself, the plantation. And the store is called the commissary. It sounds official, almost helpful, like something designed to provide. But it isn't. It's where you buy everything you can't grow. Flour, salt, meat, shoes, tools. And you don't pay with cash. You pay with your future. Here's how it works. At the start of the season, you're given credit. Not money, credit. A number written in a book you don't control. You take what you need because you have no choice. Food, seed, basic supplies, and every single item goes on your account. The prices? Higher than town, sometimes double, sometimes more. But there's no competition, no alternative, no walking away. And at the end of the year, when the crops are harvested, you settle the debt. Or at least, you try to, because the math is never in your favor. The ledger is kept by the landowner. The numbers are calculated by the landowner. And the final answer is told to you. Not shown, not explained, told. You still owe. Every year. No matter how hard you worked. No matter how good the harvest was. You still owe. Which means you stay. You go into the next season already in debt. You plant again, buy again, owe again. And the cycle never breaks. This has a name. Debt peonage. But names don't capture what it feels like. Because what it really is a system designed to make sure you can't leave. And while all of this is happening, your children are growing up on what you can afford to feed them. Cornmeal, fatback, beans, the same foods over and over. Not because you choose them, because they're what's available. And over time, that diet starts to show. Skin lesions, weak bones, constant fatigue. Diseases with names most people never hear anymore. All of them caused by something simple. Not enough of what the body needs. And the cruelest part? It doesn't have to be this way. Better food exists. Fresh vegetables, protein, variety. But access is controlled. And control is power. So you do what you can. You plant a garden, small, carefully tended. Sweet potatoes, greens, beans, whatever the soil allows. You raise chickens, if you can. Fish when there's time. Hunt when it's possible. Every meal you grow yourself is one less you have to owe for. And that is resistance. Quiet, unseen, but real. Because in a system designed to keep you dependent, feeding yourself is an act of control. But even then, it's not enough. There are always things you can't grow. Salt, sugar, coffee, medicine. And for those things, you go back to the same place, the same system, the same rules. And every time, you already know exactly how it's going to go. Now, let's move somewhere else. Further north. A city. Chicago, Detroit, New York. Places people came to, looking for something different. Opportunity, better wages, freedom from the rules you just walk through. And at first, it almost feels like that's what you found. The streets are louder, faster, full of movement. Factories, trains, crowds that don't stop. But after a while, you start to notice something. The boundaries are still there, just shaped differently. You don't live wherever you want. You live where you're allowed. Certain streets, certain blocks, packed tight, crowded. Buildings divided into smaller and smaller spaces. Families stacked on top of each other. And outside those blocks, there are places you simply don't go. Not safely. This has its own system. Not Jim Crow signs on doors, but contracts, policies, lines drawn on maps, invisible, but enforced. And just like before, the stores follow those lines. The big grocery chains, the new ones, they don't build here. They build somewhere else, where the streets are wider, cleaner, whiter. So in your neighborhood, you get what's left. Small shops, crowded shelves, limited choices. And the same pattern begins again. Higher prices, lower quality, fewer options. You pick up a piece of fruit, it's already soft. Meat, not as fresh. Cans, dented. And everything costs more than it should. Because once again, where else are you going to go? Different place, same structure. Different rules, same outcome. And over time, this becomes normal. Not because it's right, but because it's consistent. This is where something begins. A pattern that doesn't disappear. A system that outlives the moment. What we call today, food deserts. Places where access to good food is limited, expensive, unreliable. But this isn't new. It didn't start recently. It started here, in these neighborhoods, in these decisions. But even inside that, something else exists. Something quieter, stronger than it looks. Black-owned stores. Small, sometimes just a front room, sometimes a narrow storefront on a busy street. But when you walk in, it feels different. You're seen, acknowledged, spoken to like you matter. You can take your time, touch what you're buying, ask questions, even ask for credit without humiliation attached to it. And that changes something. Not the system, not the bigger structure around you, but the feeling of being human inside it. But even these places are fragile. They don't have the same access, the same supply chains, the same protection. Suppliers charge more. Banks refuse loans. Rent goes up without warning. And sometimes they disappear overnight. Burned, forced out, replaced. Not by accident, but by pressure. So even here, even in the place that feels like yours, nothing is guaranteed. And once again, you adapt, because that's what survival looks like. Not comfort, not ease, adaptation, learning how to move inside a system that was never built for you. You make it back home. The door closes behind you. And for a moment, everything is quiet. The bag is set down on the table. Flour, salt, lard. Not everything you wanted, but enough to try. The children are still out there, playing, laughing like the world isn't pressing down on you from every direction. And for a second, you let that sound sit, because it's the only part of the day that feels light. You get to work, flour and lard, hands moving from memory. You don't measure anymore, you just know. The skillet heats, the fatback hits the pan, a sharp sizzle fills the room. You add what you can, stretch what you have, make it look like more than it is, because that's part of this too. Not just feeding, but making it feel like enough. Sweet potatoes go in beside the fire. Beans from last night get reheated. Everything working together. Not perfect, but real. And as the smell starts to rise, something shifts. Not outside, not in the system waiting for you tomorrow, but inside this room. Because right now, you're doing something that doesn't show up in records. You're feeding your family. Against the prices, against the waiting, against the quiet humiliation that followed you out of that store. They come inside, eyes on the table, hopeful, and you serve them first. Always. They don't ask where the food came from, or what it cost you to get it. They just eat. And for a moment, that's enough. But here's the part that stays. This isn't just one morning. It's every morning, every week, every year. A routine built on effort most people never see. And when people look back at 1930, they talk about the Great Depression, banks failing, markets crashing, bread lines forming. But for you, for people like you, this wasn't new. This was already the system. The only difference was that now everyone else was starting to feel it too. And even now, long after 1930, some of these patterns haven't disappeared. They've changed shape, changed language, but they're still there. In where stores are built, in what things cost, in who has options and who doesn't. So the next time something simple happens, like walking into a store, picking what you want, paying, and leaving, just remember, that wasn't always simple. For some people, it never was. And what looks like an ordinary meal can carry a story you never had to live.